4:06, it is indeed the Jerry Bader Show. I know, if you're just turning the radio on, you expected to hear Sean Hannity. I'm broadcasting live from the Republican Party of Wisconsin Convention downtown Green Bay. This, of course, a pivotal election year. The last time I did one of these was 2014 when I said it was a pivotal election year, and it was. That's when Scott Walker was trying to get elected for the third time, re-elected, as it were, after the recall of 2012. And there's another huge statewide race coming up in November. That, of course, for U.S. Senate. Ron Johnson, challenged by his predecessor, the man he defeated in 2010, Russ Feingolds. And I'm joined now in our makeshift yet spacious studios here at the WTAQ Convention Center downtown Green Bay by Senator Ron Johnson. Ron, good to see you again.
Good to see you. It's cavernous, and I'd much rather listen to you than Sean.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
It's called pandering.
Yeah, it is.
But it's true.
Well, you know what? Even if it was, you can go ahead and pander. That's fine. That's just fine. Want to talk about, we had Brad Courtney on earlier, and I had Mike Duffy on earlier in the week from the Republican Party of Wisconsin. So look, this is going to be Ron Johnson's convention. Don't know if you know that, but that's the way that they're positioning this. We've already seen a lot of advertising on both sides. You are perceived as vulnerable, particularly what's going on at the top of the ticket. The Democratic Party nationally sees you as vulnerable. Whatever you faced in 2010, this could be perhaps the most obnoxious U.S. Senate race in terms of what gets thrown around we've ever seen. You know you're in for a hell of a fight.
It's one of the reasons why more people don't step up to the plate and do these things, because it is a vicious, in many respects, a repulsive process. And that's just a shame. But let's face it, as you said, this is a pivotal election. They're going to continue to be pivotal because our nation's on the wrong path. And it's being taken more and more down a path of socialism, where politicians like Senator Feingolds, career politicians, their only campaign is just promising the American public more stuff. And we're running out of money. We are mortgaging our kids' future, which is why we are at a critical juncture, and we're going to continue to be at that juncture until we elect more people that are serious about fixing some of these problems. And that's certainly what I offer to Wisconsinites, is I'm dead serious about solving these problems.
And the scope and responsibility and authority of government, I think, is also a big issue. And let's face it, that's why Donald Trump is the front runner right now, and in fact is the presumptive nominee. But let me give you an example. The big political story today, I'll call it the edict from the Obama administration, that school districts across the country must accommodate transgender by basically allowing them to use whichever bathroom they want. Regular listeners to my morning show know that a couple of months ago, I went public with the fact my younger child is transgender. This issue is close to me. That said, I disagree with the administration's edict on this. My mind has been open to the degree where I think we need to make some type of accommodation. However, I don't agree with this as the solution. And even if I did, I think the larger overarching issue here is basically the government blackmail on this.
Well, again, why does the federal government have to involve itself in this? Why isn't that handled by the states? I've got one amendment stenciled on my Senate office wall. It's the 10th Amendment, which, to paraphrase, because it's actually kind of a complex amendment to read and interpret, but it basically says the federal government should do only what it's enumerated in the Constitution for it to do. All other governing powers are left to the states, and really the power is really left to the people. That's what we should be doing this. Why do we all of a sudden have a president, who's once again acting like a king, making these, let's face it, controversial decisions for every American? Why not let that really be closely governed at the state or local level?
Well, and then we don't have the specifics, but we know it's public school districts. Is this K-12? I mean, but it is such an overreach, and it's just the latest example.
Well, exactly. One of the things I'm quoting all the time in terms of what's harming our economy. If you're concerned about income inequality, I think we all are, because of wage stagflation. Look no further than the federal government overreach when it comes to regulation. There's one Wisconsin paper manufacturing company, and Jerry, here's a real sad fact. I can't mention the person's name because They're afraid of retribution if they exercise their First Amendment rights to really petition the government and speak freely. Did a calculation on just 4 regulations, just 4. And there have been hundreds issued by every administration. Just 4 is costing this Wisconsin paper manufacturer the equivalent of $12,000 per year per employee. So that's $12,000 that isn't available to increase wages, increase benefits, grow the business, create greater opportunities. That's called government or regulatory overreach, and it's killing this economy.
Speaking with U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, and you know, this is to me, and I know this frustrates the hell out of you, and it frustrates me, is when people mistakenly suggest that at some point in history you backtracked on your staunch opposition to Obamacare, which you have never, ever, but you hear that, and I hear that, well, why didn't he do this, and why didn't he do that?
That's actually one I don't hear much.
Oh, you gotta be kidding me, that you went soft on Obamacare?
How could they possibly say that?
Because you couldn't snap your fingers and get it repealed.
Okay, yeah, because we had a Democrat president that when we actually did put a basic repeal of Obamacare on President Obama's desk, he vetoed it. And sorry, we don't have 2/3 of both body to override the veto.
Now, that said, a major court ruling that basically said the funding, critical part of the funding mechanism of Obamacare is unconstitutional, that in fact Congress has to appropriate monies that are spent even in this scenario. And the immediate White House response, it's been upheld before, it'll be upheld again and again. And frustratingly so that the courts, and I was disappointed in anyone in Chief Justice John Roberts, but I think there's a viable case here. Congress has got to spend the money. That's just a constitutional reality. And I think this is, and I'm not saying it didn't get a lot of reportage, it did, but I think this is a really big deal.
Yeah. Again, this is a district court level, so there are a number of levels, and that's, of course, always frustrating. The wheels of justice turns very, very slowly. But Jerry, part of the problem, because I hear this is actually what is frustrating to me, is I hear all the time that, well, you have got the power of the purse. I mean, the fact of the matter is past Congresses have given away the power of the purse. You have 2/3 of the federal government, which is mandatory spending, and the other third, the discretionary spending, so much that is deemed essential, national defense, the Defense Department, Department of Homeland Security, plus the agencies that administer the other mandatory spending programs are also deemed essential. So the government was shut down in October 2013. I don't have the exact figure, but my sense is about 90% just continue to roll right along. And so, Congress could pack up its bags, go home, and that maybe wouldn't be a bad idea, but you have 90% of the federal government about just plodding on in perpetuity.
Talking with U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, I want to get down to basics here, because another criticism that I hear of you from conservatives is, well, what has he accomplished? What has he accomplished? Great question. Stack your resume up against the resume of the man that you replaced, who wants that job back, Russ Feingolds. What is your resume? What are your accomplishments?
Well, first of all, ask yourself, what has Senator Feingolds ever accomplished in 18 years? 18 years, 3 terms. What do campaign finance reform? A bunch of that was ruled unconstitutional. It's given us this mess of a finance system we have right now. Voted against a balanced budget amendment 4 times. Was one of 60 deciding votes on Obamacare. That, of course, didn't go far enough for him. He wanted a single-payer system. So, that's what Senator Obama did and didn't accomplish, but what he did accomplish was all bad. Never chairman of a committee. In my 5th year, I became chairman of the Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. Using a business person's approach, trying to find areas of agreement. Jerry, we've actually passed 69 pieces of legislation, 25 have been signed into law, and they're not the kinds of bills that grow the government. They make government more accountable. A little more efficient. Things like the Federal Cybersecurity Enhancement Act, forcing the federal government to actually install security measures on its cyber assets. What a concept. Plus, when the tragedy occurred in Toma, I first found out about that personally in January 15th, 2015, when the news broke. Because I became chairman of the committee, I was able to allocate a lot of manpower resources to do our own investigation. Jerry, we've held people accountable. I called for a hearing on the Toma VA in Toma. Powerful testimony by the survivors. That affected the VA. And so Dr. Houlihan is gone. The executive director is gone. The nurse practitioner is gone. The totally corrupt, I would think, Inspector General, the acting Inspector General, who deep sixed all these reports, did not make things public, he is gone. That is because of the efforts of my committee doing the investigation. So no, I've actually accomplished something. I'm a business guy. I get results.
Talking with Senator Ron Johnson. Speaking of getting results, I got this email when I promoted that the senator was going to be on the show. And you're listening to the Jerry Bader Show in the afternoon, one-time shot for the Republican Party of Wisconsin convention here in downtown Green Bay. Hello, Jerry. I left home extremely early this morning for St. Paul to deliver a tanker load of whey and then loaded a load of liquid molasses bound for a large dairy farm over south of Manitowoc in the town of Newton. I won't make it back home tonight due to the limited amount of hours drivers are allowed to operate a commercial motor vehicle without taking a 10-hour break. I'll be enjoying the night visiting my son and daughter-in-law in Appleton tonight. This is my third out-of-state trip I've made this week, and it'll make a big difference in my paycheck. As you know, I would not have been able to do these out-of-state trips without the help and guidance from Ron Johnson and his staff. Please, if you have not done it already, shake Ron Johnson's hand for me and tell him I said thank you. Ron from Medford, and more importantly, Ron on the road. And I remembered Ron sharing his story with me, and I want to just, as quickly as I can, reshare it. This is an email that he sent me in, I don't remember when he first reached out to me. Hello, Jerry. I have a true story to tell you about an experience I had early last year with Ron Johnson and a member of his staff at his Milwaukee office. I'm a 56-year-old male that has driven semi-truck most of my adult life, despite being diagnosed with epilepsy when I was 2 years old. My dad was a truck driver, so that's what I grew up wanting to be. I was granted a Wisconsin chauffeur's license when I was 19 years old, but could only drive a commercial motor vehicle in interstate commerce, meaning I could not cross the state line and could only haul material that stayed in the state and did not cross the state line, even if another driver brought it into the state. Oh, no, nothing like arcane government regulation. Over the years, I had tried at least twice to get a waiver from the feds to drive a CMV commercial motor vehicle, but was unsuccessful despite my good driving record. The federal law said that if you ever had epilepsy, you could not drive a CMV in interstate commerce, that is, across the state line. Fast forward to February 2014. My boss told me we have to find a way that we can get it so that you can drive into Minnesota. I told him I had tried over the years, but with no luck, but we'll try again. I contacted Sean Duffy, Ron Johnson, and Tammy Baldwin via their office and Senate.gov contact forms, explaining my problem. Jerry, this is the part that I consider amazing. The next day, I received a phone call from a member of Ron Johnson's staff asking to further explain my problem. I explained to her, I think her name was Terry. She told me that the office would look into it and get back to me. But a week later, I received a call from the Milwaukee office, and Terry told me that there's a pilot program to help people with a history of epilepsy apply for a federal DOT waiver. She told me she had copies of the application emailed to her and to me and hard copies in the mail. Never heard a peep from Tammy Baldwin's office. He did hear back from Duffy's office. One thing I want to make clear, no favors were made or rules bent in the process of me applying for the waiver. So even though some people could try to accuse Johnson of helping put what they might feel are unsafe drivers on the highway, the pilot program was already in effect. His office simply supplied me with the tools to get in the program. I've been seizure-free for 35 years, and I have a very safe driving record with the experience driving a lot of different types of semi-tractor combinations. I have been, when someone says Ron Johnson is only looking out for the rich and powerful, think of this true story I just told you. Next time you see Ron Johnson, 2 years ago, he asked me to shake your hand for him, and say thank you and keep up the great work. Thank you, Ron from Medford, Ron on the road. So I will just pass along the thank you from Ron and Medford. And I'll shake your hand.
And yeah, the hand has been shaken. Listen, I've got just great staff across the board, and they're normal people. I'd like to think the fact that I come from the business world where your customer service is the number one thing you do. I mean, you're just dedicated to customer service and quality. And so I've just got great people that really are concerned about others, and they